Are you sure this is the right way?
Well, of course I am. I was the greatest navigator in the entire Eastern video game sector.
Well, so far you've had us going in circles.
Don't worry, I know exactly where we're...
Oh, sweet Jesus, make it stop!
That's the boss.
Quick, follow his screams of agony.
Twilight! That was fast. Let me guess, you got a perfect score.
Greetings, travelers. I'm your host, the C-Dot that knows a lot, Dr. Waluigi. Remakes have become more and more commonplace in the movie industry to the point that it's become a more worn-out joke than The Simpsons. While some have proven to be timeless and have improved upon the original, sadly there are those that prove the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't break it. With that in mind, I present to you my personal choices for the top 10 worst remakes of all time.
Twilight! That was fast. Let me guess, you got a perfect score.
Number 10. RoboCop. In the 80s, RoboCop was one of the most violent and politically controversial movies ever made. It was and still is one of the best action movies that holds up even today because of how great the political satire was mixed with the over-the-top violence. Sadly, the remake has none of these qualities as it decides to focus more on the political satire of the movie in modern day and removes all of the over-the-top violence to keep it kid-friendly. Even with that in mind, it doesn't help that the cast didn't put in much of a performance, and there were a lot of top-tier actors in this movie, like Michael Keaton and Gary Oldman. Number 9. Footloose. One of the main problems people have with remakes is when you just tell the same exact story with only minor tweaks to make it original. Based on the 1984 teen drama of the same name, the story follows a kid who moves in with his distant relatives after his mother dies. He soon discovers that the town he lives in has banned all kinds of music and dancing, which he and the other kids of the town try to bring back. The problem with the remake is that, much like RoboCop, it follows the exact same plot and only changes one thing: the soundtrack, which goes from rock and roll to country. Oh yeah, that's totally what this story needed to improve on. Timeless 80s music with a modern day country vibe. Cause that's what people who like the original complained about, having no country music. Number 8. My Bloody Valentine 3. Why? Why do so many of these remakes have to have 3D in them? Based on the cult slasher film of the same name, My Bloody Valentine is one of the few great horror films that came out in the 80s that was unfortunately trimmed down because of the MPAA's war against violent movies. The remake, on the other hand, is a watered-down, unoriginal ghost story of the original version that's only other memorable trait is that it was one of the few 3D revival movies that hasn't aged well since the invention of 3D. If you have the opportunity to check out either this or the original movie, stick with the original as it did come out on Blu-ray and has some of the original footage put back in for those who want to see the full version. Number 7. Bram Stoker's Dracula. Sorry guys, but I truthfully don't care for this version of Dracula. Based on the original novel and directed by Francis Ford Coppola, this remake of Dracula is mostly boring. Aside from the fact that it follows almost point for point of the original story, the movie has really bad effects that haven't aged well and a poorly casted Keanu Reeves as the main character. While other versions of Dracula are probably worse than this one, I still don't care for this adaptation compared to the original novel and the much better 1931 movie starring Bela Lugosi. Number 6. When a Stranger Calls. Oh, sweet dear Lord and Lady above, how do you fuck up a movie this bad? The movie is a remake of the original 1979 movie of the same name about a babysitter who was stalked by a man who killed the children she was babysitting. The original movie wasn't anything special by this point in time due to Halloween, but this movie did do a few things different enough from the other horror movies that I consider to be one of the classics to check out. The remake, on the other hand, takes the first 5 minutes of the original movie and extends it to over an hour and a half. And all this movie does is show the babysitter walking around a giant empty house with very few phone calls from the killer. Oh yeah, that's what people want to see in a remake, a young girl walking around an empty house. Really? Number 5. Black Christmas. One of the many films that started the slasher genre was 1974's Black Christmas. It was a dark and creepy film that not only introduced the idea of the slasher movie, but home invasion movies like The House on Sorority Row and Slumber Party Massacre. Sadly though, in the late 2000s, a remake did come out that took away any of the mystery and suspense of the original and replaced it with horrible people, annoying jump scares, and 2 serial killers born out of an incestuous relationship. Excuse me, but I need to go vomit my brains out. Number 4. Dark Water. The original Japanese horror film is one of the few movies that I think is underrated simply because it's not as scary as the Grudge movies. It doesn't help that the remake tries to make the same smart ideas that the original did, but falls on its face with poor acting and some of the worst over-the-top Americanized special effects that turn this classic ghost story into another in-your-face horror movie. Number 3. Halloween. Oh God, what a piece of shit this was. I get why people like Rob Zombie's work. I personally think that he can do good movies, but this movie is the worst he's ever made. The main reason is that this movie takes all of the mystery and ambiguity of Michael Myers and gave him a pointless backstory, which makes him and everyone else an unlikable jackass that makes it hard to think how this could in any way be a remake of one of the scariest horror films of all time. Number 2. The Stepford Wives. Frank Oz? Frank Oz directed this piece of filth. How? Why? Ugh. For those of you that don't know, The Stepford Wives is one of the most well-known horror films of all time and has left its mark on popular culture. If you're wondering how, this movie created the idea of an entire town of women being complacent and obedient only for the main character to discover they've been replaced by robots. This movie became an iconic hit, getting sequels, spin-offs, and being referenced in nearly every TV series. And then they made this thing in 2004. The main reason why this film doesn't work is that the filmmakers decided to change the concept of the film from a horror film to a comedy. The problem isn't that the concept was changed. Most shows can do this concept as a comedy, but most of the time the shows are 30 minutes at most. This is over an hour and a half long. Trying to do the same thing for that long is nearly impossible for everyone in the audience who knows that things are a little weird in this town. And the fact that the film isn't anywhere being hilarious and just being a little creepy. Number 1. Black Christmas 2019. Oh, you thought that there was only one Black Christmas remake? Ha! That's like having only one Halloween movie. Once again, based on the original 1974 movie of the same name, this version of Black Christmas decides to throw away any of the subtle and creepy themes of the original and opted to give us a version that appealed to the SJWs. With characters that are horrible to both men and women, not even having the original serial killer from the first movie, and a remake of Black Christmas that was only made so that some idiot could vent their frustrations on a movie genre that didn't need this crap on a beloved classic horror film. I mean, really? Do you just hate men that much that you need to make all of them mindless douchebags that have no redeeming qualities? Well, screw you too! Well, thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Waluigi, and remember, don't judge a book by its cover, cause you'll never know what's inside. Good night, everyone.
Twilight! That was fast. Let me guess, you got a perfect score. A minus? B plus? Twilight! Did you fail?
Look, there he is.
What is that demon doing to him?
Oh God, please, no more. I'm begging you.
Oh, we've only begun now. It's time for the next movie.
No, please, anything but that.